Nicole stood in the bathroom, her hands shaking as she stared down at the fertility pamphlet in one hand and the medical bill in the other. Her stomach twisted. Tyler had mocked her again that morning, said her body was the problem, that maybe she was just meant to be the cool aunt, not a mom. But the bill in her hand said something else. His name, the procedure, a vasectomy, done 6 months ago. The exact month he began treating her like a failure. Her eyes filled with tears, but they didn't fall. Something in her cracked and hardened. Cut to 5 years later. Nicole walks onto a TEDx stage in a crimson blazer, the audience erupting into applause. Calm, powerful, unshakable. This is the story of how a woman betrayed by the one person who should have protected her, took back her voice, and ignited a national movement for reproductive truth. Nicole was 34, a dedicated public health educator living in Minneapolis. She loved her job, traveling to schools and clinics to teach reproductive health, consent, and body literacy. Her mission was clear: empower women with facts. But at home, her own truth was quietly unraveling. She had been married to Tyler for 5 years. He was the kind of man everyone adored, charming, articulate, and always smiling in public. As a nonprofit director advocating for youth mentoring, he had built a reputation around compassion. On the surface, they were the perfect couple. They hosted community fundraisers, posted joyful Instagram stories from cozy vacations, and sipped coffee from matching mugs that said, "Mom to be." But inside their home, the warmth faded quickly. For the past 3 years, they'd been trying to have a baby. Each month brought a new wave of disappointment, and while Nicole never heard Tyler yell, his words cut deeper than silence. He'd reassure her softly, "It's not your fault, babe," then follow it days later with, "Maybe if you didn't work so much," or, "Stress affects fertility, you know." Nicole began to blame herself entirely. She visited multiple specialists, endured invasive testing, and started keeping a symptom journal. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong with her. She clung to hope and prayer, researching holistic methods, acupuncture, and diet shifts. She even began looking into adoption. He scoffed. "That's not the same. That's for people who don't have options." The rejection stung. But what haunted her more was what he'd said one night in the dark, when he thought she was asleep. "Some women just aren't meant to be mothers." She froze. His voice was so casual, like he was discussing the weather. The words looped in her mind for weeks. Still, she kept trying. She tracked her ovulation, took supplements, and even booked a weekend getaway to reset. Tyler acted amused. "Whatever makes you feel better," he said. The condescension was new, and it burned. Yet Nicole didn't stop. She had internalized the failure. Every missed period felt like another personal shortcoming. Her journals became more desperate. She wrote prayers in the margins. Her handwriting trembled as the entries piled up with hope, then grief. She started hiding those notebooks, ashamed of how obsessed she'd become. But she didn't give up. She couldn't. Every part of her still wanted a child. Not just for the dream of family, but to prove to herself that she could be a mother. Then came the envelope. One afternoon, cleaning out Tyler's office drawer for their annual taxes, she found it. A sealed clinic envelope addressed to him. Curious and distracted, she opened it, expecting receipts. Instead, she found the bill. One line item, vasectomy, dated 6 months ago. She read it again, then again. Her hands trembled. The world around her blurred, but the black ink stayed sharp. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed to the floor, pamphlets from the fertility clinic spilling around her. All this time, every test, every tear, every jab from Tyler all in. And it was never her. He had known, and he had let her suffer. On purpose. Nicole could trace the exact moment when everything began to shift. It was subtle at first. Tyler started skipping appointments. He blamed work, claiming he couldn't step away from his nonprofit responsibilities. "You know how crazy this quarter is," he'd say, kissing her on the forehead like it was no big deal. She made excuses for him at the clinic. "He's just busy." He'd still supportive, but deep down something gnawed at her. She went to a reproductive endocrinologist, alone, After a long, exhausting ultrasound and blood panel, she came home to find Tyler lounging on the couch with two of his friends, watching football. Beer bottles were scattered on the table. One of them glanced at her and said, "Hope it's not those hormone shots again." Tyler laughed. "Yeah, she's been riding an emotional roller coaster. God help me." Nicole stood frozen in the doorway. That wasn't just a joke. It was a message. From that day on, his comments got sharper. He stopped holding her during those painful days when tests came back negative. Instead, he rolled his eyes. She suggested she stop trying so hard. One time, he scheduled a guy's trip to Denver just 2 days after her latest IUI attempt. "You'll need time to rest anyway," he shrugged. Her best friend Eva, always intuitive, started pushing back. "Nicole, does Tyler even want this baby? Or is he just keeping you on a string?" Nicole waved it off. "He's stressed, that's all." But a part of her, the part she silenced every time Tyler smiled in public, had started whispering that maybe Eva was right. Then came the day everything shattered. Nicole had been organizing receipts for tax season in their shared home office. A stack of unopened envelopes sat in Tyler's drawer. Bills, junk mail, clinic paperwork. She reached for one labeled North Star Urology, assuming it was another medical statement they needed for their HSA. She opened it casually. What she saw made her stomach turn. The letter was short. One line leapt off the page. Procedure, vasectomy. Date, 6 months ago. Her chest tightened. Her hands shook. She read it again. Then again. She looked up at the calendar on the wall. That date. It was the same month Tyler had bought her a fertility journal and said, "Keep believing." Nicole sank into the chair, holding the envelope like it was a weapon. Because it was. It wasn't just the vasectomy. It was everything that followed. The coldness, the jokes, the fake support. He had made her think she was broken. He watched her cry in the shower. He let her inject herself with hormones, schedule every doctor's appointment, and sob through every failed cycle. And he knew. She sat in silence for almost an hour, not crying, not moving, just breathing and burning. The betrayal wasn't just the lie. It was the performance. It was the cruelty. It was the silence. That's when something in her snapped. Nicole didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't throw the envelope in Tyler's face. She just tucked the vasectomy bill back into the drawer, walked into the kitchen, and made herself a cup of tea. Her hands were steady. Her heart? Not so much. But something had shifted. The woman who had spent the last 3 years begging for answers had disappeared. In her place stood someone who wanted the truth and power. The next morning, she dressed in soft beige slacks and a navy blouse, pulled her hair back, and drove across town to North Star Urology. She stepped up to the receptionist's desk with a clipboard in her hand and a confident smile. "Hi, I'm calling on behalf of my husband, Tyler Green. He asked me to pick up a copy of his records for tax purposes." The receptionist barely glanced up. Last Green, Green. Within minutes, Nicole had the printout in hand. Procedure confirmed. Date and time stamped. Doctor's signature at the bottom. It was real. He hadn't just lied. He'd planned it. At home, she logged into their shared insurance portal. Scrolling through past claims, she found the deductible for the procedure. He had even used their health savings account to cover part of it. It didn't stop there. That night, she carefully unlocked his iPad, which synced to his phone messages. Her stomach turned when she found the text, sent to his old college buddy. "Nip snip, best decision I ever made. She'll never know." Nicole stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Then she took a screenshot. For the next 2 weeks, she played the role. She smiled during church, laughed at Tyler's awkward jokes in front of neighbors, cooked dinner, folded laundry, and slipped into bed beside him. And each day, she compiled a folder, receipts, screenshots, and now a confirmed medical record. She printed it all, bound it, highlighted the timeline. Every mockery, every appointment he skipped, every false hope he let her carry. Then she made a dinner reservation at their favorite steakhouse. Tyler was in a good mood that night. Ordered a bottle of red, toasted to fresh starts. She sipped water and waited. As they cut into their steaks, Tyler smirked and said, "Maybe we should try yoga. Could fix your stress womb." Nicole didn't flinch. She reached into her bag, pulled out the neatly folded clinic bill, and placed it between the salt shaker and his plate. His fork froze mid-air. He stared at it. Read it. His face went pale. The silence was louder than any scream. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. "Where did you get this?" She didn't answer. "You've been spying on me," he snapped, his voice rising. "That's a breach of privacy. You're crazy." Nicole calmly tapped her phone, resting face down on the table. "It's recording," she said. "Every word." Tyler's mouth opened, then shut. He leaned back in his chair, furious and exposed. Nicole stood, picked up her coat, and walked out. She never looked back. Nicole packed her things and moved in with Eva that same night. It wasn't just about leaving, it was about finding space to breathe, to think, to heal. For the first time in years, she wasn't apologizing for taking up space. Eva welcomed her with open arms, no questions asked. In the quiet of Eva's guest room, Nicole started therapy. She needed to understand why she'd stayed so long, why she'd internalized so much blame. Her therapist helped her name it: reproductive sabotage, psychological manipulation, medical betrayal. She began writing about it, first in her journal, then in an anonymous Reddit post titled, "My husband secretly got a vasectomy and let me think I was infertile." Within 24 hours, it had over 10,000 upvotes. Women from all over the world shared their own stories: secret IUD removals, sabotaged birth control, pressured abortions. Nicole read every comment. She wasn't just personal, it was systemic. That's when she launched the podcast, Womb Truth. Each episode featured a new story: real women, real pain, real betrayal. The podcast caught fire. Within 3 months, it was featured in a BuzzFeed article. Nicole kept her identity quiet, at first. But when she filed for divorce, she knew she couldn't stay silent anymore. Tyler tried to weaponize her vulnerability. He claimed she was emotionally unstable, that she was using delusions of betrayal to destroy him. But Nicole came prepared. Her lawyer submitted the clinic bill, the insurance documents, the audio recording from their dinner, and even a written witness statement from the receptionist who confirmed the vasectomy. Tyler's lawyer asked for a recess. The next day, he filed a motion to settle. The divorce was finalized in under 3 weeks. But Tyler's fall didn't stop there. After Nicole's podcast gained traction, several women from his nonprofit came forward. One revealed Tyler pressured her to stay quiet about his inappropriate comments. Another said he dated her, told her he wanted kids, then revealed post-breakup that he'd had a vasectomy years earlier. The board of the nonprofit suspended him pending investigation. Within a month, he resigned. Nicole kept rising. A reproductive justice professor from the University of Minnesota invited her to speak at a graduate seminar. That night, she shared the full story, for the first time, using her real name. The standing ovation caught her off guard, but the invitations didn't stop. She appeared on a morning talk show. A reproductive rights coalition asked her to be a panelist at a national summit. The Womb Truth podcast hit 2 million downloads. Nicole was scared, of course. The more visible she became, the more trolls came out of the woodwork. But the support drowned them out. Survivors sent thank you messages. A law firm offered her pro bono help. An indie documentary crew reached out to feature her work. She still cried sometimes. Healing wasn't linear. But for the first time in her life, she felt powerful. Not because she exposed Tyler Reiter, but because she refused to be erased. Nicole didn't just want justice. She wanted protection, for herself and for every woman who had been quietly erased by a partner's betrayal. ReproRight was born in a cramped corner of a shared co-working space in downtown Minneapolis. At first, it was just Nicole and a whiteboard. She mapped out every call she'd received, every story that mirrored her own. Women from all walks of life, teachers, nurses, lawyers, students, messaged her saying, "This happened to me too." Nicole realized it wasn't rare, it was systemic. She built a board of advisors, a gynecologist who had witnessed too many silenced patients, a civil rights attorney who believed consent was a legal issue, and a trauma therapist who understood the emotional wreckage reproductive sabotage left behind. They offered free consultations, legal templates, and therapy referrals. The nonprofit's social media exploded overnight. Nicole became a visible advocate. She exposed loopholes in state laws, how a man could undergo a vasectomy without informing his spouse, and still weaponize her body, her grief. She demanded legislative clarity. With help from a local senator, she co-wrote the Reproductive Consent Transparency Act. Then came the daytime talk shows. Nicole's story was featured on The Morning Table and Real Talk with Maya. She sat under studio lights, palms sweating, voice steady. "My name is Nicole. My husband lied about his vasectomy and gaslit me for over a year, while I blamed myself for infertility." She named Tyler. The fallout was immediate. Tyler's nonprofit was hit with public outcry. Former donors pulled funding. Board members issued a statement condemning unethical personal behavior. Within a week, he was removed from leadership. A news anchor asked Nicole, "Was this revenge?" Nicole answered clearly, "No, this is about the truth. Women deserve the truth about their own bodies." Still, Tyler wasn't done. He posted a shaky apology video on his personal page, claiming miscommunication and emotional immaturity. Comments flooded with disbelief. Several women Nicole didn't know reached out with similar stories. Tyler had made unilateral reproductive decisions in past relationships too. Nicole wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post titled, "My husband lied about his vasectomy. It nearly broke me." The piece went viral. In it, she detailed the emotional manipulation, the physical toll, and the societal silence that allowed it. ReproRight became national. A senator in California invited Nicole to testify in front of a legislative committee. She wore a simple black blazer and carried nothing but her words. "We teach people how to prevent pregnancy, but we don't teach them how to protect themselves from betrayal. Reproductive deception is abuse, and it's time the law saw it that way." Tyler tried again, this time legally. He sent her a cease and desist letter, accusing her of defamation. Her lawyer responded with a 96-page binder of documentation: the bill, the timeline, the messages, the recording, and notarized testimony from the clinic. He never followed up. Nicole stood once more, this time in front of a packed conference center at the National Women's Policy Summit. "This isn't about revenge," she said, her voice echoing across the room. "It's about truth. It's about bodily autonomy. It's about refusing to be silenced again." Applause roared through the audience. In that moment, Nicole wasn't the woman in the bathroom holding a fertility pamphlet with shaking hands. She was a movement. Nicole no longer woke up to dread. She woke up to purpose. She didn't measure her worth by ovulation charts or pregnancy tests anymore. She stopped asking herself what was wrong with her body. Instead, she asked what she could build next. ReproRight had grown from a side project to a national nonprofit with 3 regional offices, 20 staff members, and a pro bono legal network serving over 1,000 women a year. Nicole had become not just the face of the movement, but its soul. She adopted a rescue dog named Clementine, a wobbly-legged mutt with one eye and the gentlest heart. Every morning, they walked the quiet, tree-lined streets of Minneapolis, breathing in peace she never thought she'd find. She signed up for dance classes again, something she hadn't done since college. She let herself laugh, let her body sway to rhythm, let joy exist for its own sake, not tied to an outcome or someone else's expectations. At first, it felt foreign. Then it became freedom. Nicole started speaking internationally. ReproRight partnered with organizations in Canada, the UK, and Australia. They co-hosted webinars, shared legislative strategies, and created multilingual resource kits. Her inbox overflowed with thank you messages, some from lawmakers, some from teenagers who had seen her clips on TikTok and realized what had been done to them wasn't just bad luck. Then came the Women's Advocacy Awards Gala. The ballroom was all candlelight and soft jazz, the air thick with anticipation. Nicole wore a navy satin gown, her hair pinned back in soft waves. When they called her name, she stood under the chandelier and took a deep breath. The plaque read, "Trailblazer for Reproductive Truth and Justice." She spoke simply. "I thought my story was a personal failure, but the truth is, it was a mirror. And when enough women hold up the same mirror, you can't call it personal anymore. You have to call it a pattern. And patterns can be broken." As she stepped off stage, applause still echoing, she caught a glimpse of someone near the back of the room. Tyler. He looked different. Thinner, smaller, like the center of gravity had shifted, and he didn't know how to stand in it anymore. He didn't try to approach. He just stood with his hands folded in front of him, watching the woman he once tried to break become everything he never believed she could be. Nicole didn't flinch. She didn't wave. She didn't offer anything. She just turned and walked past him, like a shadow finally slipping off her back. Outside, under the night sky, a young woman in her 20s stepped forward hesitantly. "Are you Nicole? I just wanted to say, because of you, I left someone who was destroying me. I thought I was crazy, but then I heard your podcast. I wasn't crazy. I was being controlled. And you gave me language. Thank you." Nicole smiled, her heart soft and certain. This was the legacy she was meant to create. Not motherhood, not revenge, but a revolution of voice, of visibility, of women refusing to be silenced again. Nicole started journaling again. But now, the words weren't drenched in confusion or pain. They were records of victories. Small, steady wins that stacked like bricks in a foundation she never thought she'd stand on. She flipped through her old journals sometimes, tracing back the years. She saw it now, how the cracks had formed long before the collapse. The subtle manipulations, the gaslighting, the moments she felt like she was too much or not enough. Back then, she had written about them as if they were flaws in her character, but reading them now, she saw the truth. They were signs, warnings, evidence of how deeply she had been made to shrink. She didn't hate herself for not seeing it then. She forgave herself, fully. It wasn't overnight. Healing never is. But one quiet morning, with Clementine curled at her feet and steam rising from a chipped blue mug, she realized she hadn't thought about Tyler in days. Not in anger, not in regret. Just hadn't thought about him at all. That same day, she opened the mailbox and found a thick envelope with no return address. Inside was a letter from Tyler, 5 pages, not an apology, an explanation. He wrote about pressure, about confusion, about how he thought she would leave him if she knew. He blamed childhood trauma, work stress, everything but his own choices. He ended it by saying he hoped she could understand. Nicole didn't cry. She didn't rage. She didn't even finish reading the last paragraph. She walked to the fireplace, tossed the pages in, and watched them curl into ash. Not because she hated him, but because she didn't need closure from someone who had spent years denying her truth. The real closure came the day she chose herself. The day she stopped begging for kindness from a man who had never truly offered it. Later that night, she lit a candle and sat by the window. The sky was streaked with soft pinks and amber light. Clementine laid her head in Nicole's lap. The city hummed quietly in the background, alive but not demanding. Nicole wrapped her fingers around her coffee mug, warm and grounding. She was alone, but not lonely. She had thought, once, that being a mother would make her feel whole. Then she had thought justice would. But it wasn't either of those things that did it. It was this. It was knowing that she had survived something designed to erase her, that she had not just escaped, but rebuilt, that her voice had become a lifeline for others, that she had made something powerful from the most broken parts of her life. And in that stillness, in the sunrise, in the soft breath of her dog and the quiet beat of her own heart, she felt it fully. She was home. She was whole. And she was free. They told me it was my fault, that I was broken, that maybe I worked too much, thought too much, expected too much. And for a long time, I believed them. He made a decision about my body without telling me, a decision that stripped me of choice, hope, and trust. And I thought, I had to accept that, smile through it, swallow the pain, stay quiet. But silence isn't strength, and lies don't deserve loyalty. The truth didn't just set me free. It built a platform, a purpose, a movement. I'm Nicole, and I turned the lie that almost destroyed me into something that protects thousands. This story isn't just mine. It belongs to every woman who's ever been dismissed, manipulated, or made to question her own reality. To anyone who's ever whispered, "Maybe it's me," in the dark. It's not. If you've ever been deceived, gaslit, or blamed for someone else's betrayal, you are not alone. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are rising. And when your voice shakes, speak anyway. When the world tells you to shrink, grow louder. Subscribe to Veiled Fury for more stories of stolen power reclaimed, one truth at a time. Because justice doesn't always come in a courtroom. Sometimes it starts with a whisper that refuses to stay silent.